good morning, good afternoon, maybe,
Maybe.
whenever you're listening. Well, I suppose it's probably gonna be afternoon by the time this comes out. I'm
Probably.
not gonna put BMAC on the spot to say, hey, turn this in like 30 minutes. So it's
Good
well,
afternoon, everyone.
good
Good afternoon.
afternoon. It's a little before noon central here. It is June 17th, and it is a Tuesday. So we are past the no game Monday. And we are into all games Tuesday because
Missed.
tonight is the finish line for the Commissioner's Cup. I'm Steyer Johnson alongside Tyler DeLuca here on the Her Hoop Stats podcast. And today we're gonna keep it pretty topical. We're getting into the Commissioner's Cup. Thankfully we have kind of gotten ourselves up to date, up to speed. Shout out to the W putting out a thread yesterday after I had already recorded before the day with all of the tiebreaker scenarios. This might be shocking, but I am not always 100% accurate. I
How
do
dare you.
misremember things. I know, it's
How
disgusting.
dare you?
The audacity, Tyler. Yesterday I was operating under the impression that it was the fever in the driver's seat. I was wrong. It was the dream.
Yeah.
So very, very different kind of outlook there. And we can go ahead and start with the Eastern Conference because it's a little bit more straightforward. And that is that you have Atlanta, as I said, in the driver's seat. Them, Indiana, New York, all sitting at 3-1, but tonight is the Atlanta Liberty matchup. And so, as far as that goes, if Atlanta wins, they're in. Winning in because they have the head-to-head against Indiana. If it ends up with the Liberty winning, then it depends on Indiana's game. And Indiana does have Connecticut as their matchup, and so presumably, that is a game that most would assume Indiana would win. Nothing's a given, especially with the way we've seen some of these things go this year across the league. But at that point, it would be okay. If Atlanta loses and Indiana wins, they're in. If Indiana would lose to Connecticut, that is the way that New York gets into the Commissioner's Cup championship. And not exactly what we were anticipating coming into this stretch, Tyler.
No, not at all. I mean, frankly, like, in my head, I think everyone was, like, kind of had already penciled in New York versus Minnesota. I think partially because we wanted to see it, since we're never going to see it. Like, it feels like ever to get that matchup, that rematch of the finals, at least not until the All-Star break, which might as well be forever. But so I think that we were, like, all, like, low-key kind of hoping, at least from like a neutral perspective of like, I want to see this matchup. So I think partially because of that, I had already kind of penciled that in, and obviously the two teams have been undefeated, and then also both teams, like, at least, I mean, especially New York, like, their point differential, I just frankly didn't expect any team to be able to catch that. So like I had like, which now Atlanta sits with plus 62 versus New York's plus 61. So like the fact that Atlanta has even been able to like catch that, just like I was kind of surprised by, like, to actually like see it here on the stats. And then Minnesota's right there as well with plus 63, but obviously the different conference. So just with the dominance of New York and Minnesota, like, and I guess like just when you're kind of looking at the overall records that we've seen, like, it kind of just felt like a foregone conclusion. But then the WNBA is always going to WNBA. So there's never a true foregone conclusion in this league. And now it's time for what is the only thing that is certain in the WNBA is that there will be chaos in the WNBA. And so that's what we're headed towards as we kind of wrap this up. So I'm excited for it, though. I'm ready to see and see how maybe we can look back at some of these games like that maybe seem less important at the time that ended up being way more important just because of things that have like kind of panned out and everything. But this is gonna be a stacked night. It's gonna be a 3-screen type of night for sure.
Yeah, because I mean, God forbid we stagger it in any significant
Come on now.
way. So you'll definitely have your work cut out for you as far as following along with the different games. But definitely been a very interesting race, especially as the weeks have wore on. Because the way that even the Commissioner's Cup stretch started, it seemed like, okay, coming into it, we felt pretty good about Liberty Lynx. And then it took until the latter half of this Commissioner's Cup stretch for one of them to lose. And so it was definitely really interesting to go from, okay, we kind of know where we're at, to now things are so up in the air. And I mean, you have these teams where they now, with one game left, control their own destiny. But coming into it, you know, Atlanta needed a little bit of help from Indiana to be in that position. And when we get over to the Western Conference, Minnesota needed a little bit of help to be back in the driver's seat there. And so I think it's just showing I said yesterday, like there's this level of parity in the WNBA where it's not top to bottom, but there's tiers where everyone
Completely
has
agree.
a group of teams that they are capable of beating. And you can kind of slide in between them too, where there's those kind of gray areas, but there's really no one that is in a class of their own, especially when you factor in injuries and things like that, because that's obviously really significant with the Liberty. I think that their game against Indiana with John Quill in the mix goes differently. I don't know that the outcome is for sure different, but the game goes differently. And then you've had obviously Indiana without Caitlin for a while. And so you just have all of these different factors, but I will say that I have very much enjoyed the format this year. To have it all in one stretch, it just is so much easier to follow. It feels a lot more high stakes because it's not sneaking up on you. You know that every game for the first half of June is going to be a Commissioner's Cup game. And that's, I feel like, made it a lot easier for people to stay tapped in with it. And you also get this stretch where you don't have back-to-backs against the same team for a couple weeks. And you get to see everyone within one conference. And so you get a little bit more of like a level playing field. You get some more of that common film where you can start tiering teams. I mean, we're also a quarter of the way into the season, so that helps. But I've loved this new format this year.
Yeah, no, I think it's so much easier to follow because it really was just like, this is Commissioner's Cup basketball. Like, no, like now we actually like kind of can dive into it and sink your teeth into it just a little bit more where it is like a full on like this is probably the most it's felt like a mini tournament. Like, you know, like in on the W side, like on the men's side when you have like their in season tournament, which they took from the WNBA. But like when you have that like and like you have like okay your event, so like at minimum you have like your event where it's like okay the teams go to Las Vegas and like they're all playing there like this is the in season tournament. It never really felt like outside of obviously like the Commissioner's Cup game itself, it didn't really feel like an event fully in the W. And now I think with it being actually scheduled out in this way and everything, it feels more like an event and like an actual like the Commissioner's Cup time of year is and like I've enjoyed that a lot. And again, it really does like just make things a lot more simple. Like and like sometimes it's okay just to simplify things and like it doesn't have to be like anything crazy. It literally is just putting the games around the same time. And that makes such a difference in terms of like, okay, this is the Commissioner's Cup time. And I kind of like having like almost like quarters to the season in a way. It was like, okay, you have Commissioner Cup, you have All-Star break, and then you kind of have, I mean, your last stretch and then the playoffs, you know? So it's like, I can appreciate having almost different chapters and benchmarks throughout the course of the season as well. So I'm definitely much more of a fan of this format of it than years past where it was kind of just like, oh yeah, tonight is a Commissioner's Cup game.
I mean, especially considering, like, you and I both cover the NCAA pretty extensively, and so that's something that we're very used to, is having sort of chapters in your season, right? Where you have your non-conference play, and then you have your conference play, and a lot of times you have, like, the beginning of conference play, and then you have some opponents that you see multiple times. And so in a league where there's only 13 teams, you're going to see the same teams more often than you do in college, obviously. But I do think that having it a little bit more segmented is much more in line with the way I'm used to approaching things and the way I'm used to analyzing things. And so, like, it hadn't really clicked until you put it that way, but I think that that's made it a lot easier for me to feel comfortable evaluating these teams and getting a feel for kind of the way that the league is shaking out. And that's kind of a cool thing to have because that's pretty unique as far as pro sports go.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like that comparison a lot. You know, it really is like, in a way, like this does kind of feel like it's like backwards because this is the conference part, but it does kind of feel like non-conference, and then like post All-Star break feels like conference play, and then playoffs being the postseason and everything. Like I actually think that's a cool way to frame it. But yeah, it's backwards, but it feels like we're in non-conference play right now, and like that's cool. Like I like that idea, and again, just the making an event like that is the best way to make something matter to me right now is bringing it up as much as you possibly can. When you come up with a new idea, bring it up as much as you can. Kind of like you never want to like overdo it. And like there's certainly a balance with that, but like there is something to just like always having it kind of in your face a little bit. And that's what it's done over the course of this, these last couple games and everything, which is great. I think that is like a great reminder, especially if you're not someone that's tapping into every single WNBA game, but every game for this couple of weeks you're tapping into, it's always the Commissioner's Cup. Like, okay, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that is a genuinely good thing, like all across the board. So I'm a fan. Congratulations, WNBA, for doing a good scheduling thing. We're really proud of you. Keep up this energy going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely appreciate that, like, you're looking to innovate and improve, and nothing is gonna be perfect round one. That's kind of the whole point, and so to be open to feedback, to continue to update things, I think that obviously the next step is to look at the scheduling as far as timing between games. It's definitely been tough for the Western Conference having one more game and already having really tight turnarounds between a lot of these games. I know that Phoenix has talked about it, Satu's talked about it, and especially Phoenix being one of those teams that has had a good bit of injury issue there. But it's a step in the right direction. And in that vein, if we look over at the Western Conference, first of all, just on the point of point differential, it's very wild to me to see your second team in the standings with a negative point differential.
Yeah, crazy, right? Yeah, I noticed that too. Yeah, Phoenix at -2 while surrounded by +63 from Minnesota and then +13 from Golden State, +17 from Seattle. But Phoenix is number 2. Like, okay, sure. Like, I mean, like, technically, yes, I get it. I understand why that it's like that, but also like weird. I don't like it. I don't like it. I understand why it's happened, but don't do that to me. That's weird.
Yeah, certainly a little bit strange. But I'm really intrigued by this Western Conference race. As we said, you have the Lynx back in control of their own destiny, going up against the Aces, which I was sitting there and I was thinking, okay, do we see Asia back? And it has been confirmed Asia Wilson will not be playing against Minnesota, and that closes a lot of the opportunity, I think, for Vegas. Again, a lot of things can happen. Vegas still has such tremendous pieces, but especially the way that the Lynx play, the personnel that the Lynx have, it seemed like their best option was kind of a classic Asia Wilson masterclass. Like, since the Lynx are a team that doesn't really play like a true 5, and that's where Asia has the size, the strength, the ability to really go to work. And without her in the mix, I think that the defense is always tough against Minnesota. And then when you take Asia out of the mix for that, it's going to be tough. The depth with the way that Minnesota likes to play, the speed in which they play, and they just were able to rest their starters a good bit against LA. They were able to get some of their bench players a lot more run, a lot more comfortable, because that is going to be really crucial past the Commissioner's Cup, is getting some more of these players able to get out there and get comfortable. But this game being the most consequential in the Western Conference, because if Minnesota wins, that's it. Minnesota doesn't have a tiebreaker to worry about. They're 4-1, Phoenix 4-2. And since there's 7 teams, that's the team that is done for the Commissioner's Cup is Phoenix. And so they're going to be sitting at 4-2. The rest of the teams are going to be in action tonight. But that's obviously the big one. And it's a tough road for Vegas, considering they are on the road and without Asia and kind of been floundering. And so it definitely feels like it is quite literally Minnesota's game here to lose, as far as being in control of the Western Conference. And it also feels like a game that is set up for them to be in control.
Yeah, look, I mean, it also doesn't help that Las Vegas is running into Nafisa Collier playing some of the best basketball of her entire life. Like, literally was just outscoring the Sparks. Like, had she stayed in that entire game, she might have done it. Like, I'm not. She might have done it. Fee is playing like I think like the best player in the world like title is a title that kind of comes across like years, like into like you like that is something you build towards and you take, right. So like I don't know if I'm there to say that yet, but MVP, all that, like and like the current best player in the WNBA, it's Nafisa Collier. And so to run into that buzzsaw, and you don't even have Asia Wilson available to you, not great. I'm not gonna lie, not great. Now, certainly to your point, like Vegas does have pieces that are absolutely capable of just having that going nuclear game where like you just can't do anything about it. We've seen it from Jewel Lloyd before. We've certainly seen it from Jackie Young before. Like they have those caliber of players, but even with that, like who's guarding Nafisa? Like I don't know like how you answer that question. So I would frankly be shocked to see Minnesota lose this game, especially after having like that first loss, which I always feel like is kind of a nice, like I know we talked about this a lot during the college season, and like where it's like that first loss, not only do you learn stuff, but like it's like how does this team handle losing?
Yep.
You know, like there is a lot to be taken away from losing a game. So to not kind of have that worry also of like, oh, did we stay undefeated, and like just that additional pressure, like in a backwards way, like obviously you want to make history and you never want to lose, but like I think that it could kind of be a like you don't have like the extra aspect here of that team wanting to be your first loss as well. So that kind of like underdog part to it. So I'm feeling very confident in Minnesota winning this game, and I'd be pretty shocked, especially with actual stakes on the line with the Commissioner's Cup berth available. I'd be pretty shocked if Minnesota lost this game, or if Vegas is even able to slow Fee down, because she's just on another world right now. And like I would have assumed that she would have produced even with Asia there. Like it would have been a whole lot harder, but would have like that's just like the caliber of play that she's at right now. Without Asia Wilson, it could get wicked. It could get pretty wicked.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about who's going to guard Nafisa Collier, and that's a scary question, I think, for the Aces, because in their first game without Asia, they started Liz Kitley, which, God bless her, no. You don't start a player that has multiple DNPs due to coach's decision on the season. Like, I'm sorry. That's absurd. What a horrible position to put a rookie coming off of a knee injury into. And then last game, okay, so they realize that's probably not the best move. So instead you start Tiffany, and then you have Chelsea Gray playing the 4, which is, at least you have people that have played substantial minutes in the W out there on the floor. I'll take that, I think. It's still not
heavy
great.
On me, I think, because
So, are you going to have Chelsea Gray starting out guarding Nafisa Collier? That's kind of how it feels. And then beyond that, you've got, okay, Kia Stokes, Liz Kitley, Joyner Holmes. Have fun, you know. It's just like, okay, it's certainly rough as far as matchups go, and then that's not even taking into account the fact that this Lynx defense has been so tremendous. We're talking about stopping Nafisa Collier. How about what Nafisa Collier does on the opposite end of the court?
Ridiculous.
I mean, it's wild. And so when you also have your obvious number one option offensively out of the rotation, you're going to be, I don't know, looking to shoot a bunch of threes because the Lynx are so good at defending penetration and at rotating, and you have a heck of a time getting any daylight, because even against teams with very specific positions, the Lynx are very good at switching 1 through 5.
Right.
When you have a team that is playing out of position and is playing people in kind of weird spots, yeah, they're going to be able to switch anything they want and feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, Minnesota already creates disadvantages without you having to do anything. So, like, if you were forced to, like, go and make switches in the way that Vegas is going to have to make switches, and, like, just in terms of, like, their lineup and everything, Yeah, nah. I'm not feeling great for Vegas in this one. So I would be shocked, stunned, absolutely amazed if Minnesota is not in this Commissioner's Cup. But the Eastern Conference, that's where I feel like it gets real spicy today with that Atlanta New York matchup.
Yeah, that is definitely going to be really interesting. Like the Western Conference, as you said, Minnesota is in control there, and I'll say I think that the biggest potential would be, okay, say that Vegas is able to really attack and draw a whole bunch of they would need to create a lot of kind of unanticipated advantages. And so I never want to say anything's a foregone conclusion, but we feel pretty good about Minnesota. If they dropped it, we get into a crazy multi-way tiebreaker because you would have Minnesota at 4-2, you would have Phoenix at 4-2, and then you have a couple other matchups that are going to be determining things as far as who else ends up potentially 4-2, which is, as I'm trying to get to the right place.
You got what? Schedule. It's Golden State and Dallas. So Golden State could go up to 4-2. Seattle and LA. Seattle could go up to 4-2.
Yeah. So you could have up to a 4-way tie, at which point you're going head to head, like round robin. It gets crazy. And so that would certainly get pretty messy. Again, that would take a couple of different things happening. And if, for instance, both Golden State and Seattle lost, then you have a head-to-head between Minnesota and Phoenix. Minnesota would have the head-to-head there. So there's a whole bunch of scenarios. Probably not super worth getting into all of those just based on sort of the outlook. But yeah, the Western Conference, the Eastern Conference is very interesting. And then when you also get into the home court advantage for the Commissioner's Cup, that is fairly well set. Again, assuming it would be Minnesota coming out of the West, it's based on overall winning percentage, not in Commissioner's Cup play. And so that's where the West having one more team is a little bit of a benefit, because regardless of who comes out of the East, if Minnesota is coming out of the West, they will have a better winning percentage. I suppose barring Minnesota losing and winning a multi-game tiebreaker. So, there's an asterisk. But more than likely, Minnesota would have a better winning percentage, even if it were the Liberty, because they've had one more game. So, fingers crossed that that's the scenario that ends up happening. And, the game's on July 1st, too! I'm already planning on being in Minnesota on July 2nd.
There you go.
This is huge. Okay.
This is great news for Jamie. This is
wow.
I'm gonna tell you right now. Becky Hammond might just show this episode in the locker room pregame. This is gonna be the pregame speech where it's like we're just assuming Minnesota's gonna win. They're gonna try.
There's a reason I have disclaimer upon disclaimer. Like I never count a chicken before it hatches. Like absolutely not. I've been burned by that too many times. And also I don't want to give people bulletin board material. As flattered as I would be if I was being shown in the Vegas locker room, that's something that's been instilled in me from a very young age. So you don't do bulletin board material, especially as a fan, media, like that ain't your place. So I will say Vegas, like as I've been saying,
gonna hedge it.
Vegas has plenty of weapons, but no, let me just flip it on its head. Like, no, I think Vegas has a bounce back game. I think they're coming out ready for blood. Like,
I understand.
Jewel, Chelsea, and Jackie each 40 apiece. There hasn't been a 40 piece yet this year. All three of them same night.
Look, whatever
heard it here first.
Whatever you gotta do. Yeah, if all three drop 40, you heard it here first.
Yep. I'm going out on a limb. If all three of those players drop 40, I think that Vegas wins.
I think it's a great take.
Even if two of them drop 40, I think they probably win.
I also think that's a great take. I think you are on fire. I think that these are pretty safe if type takes. Like I
Yeah,
can get behind these.
that's what I'm here for.
Mhm,
That's why we
mhm.
get paid the big bucks.
Come on now. But yeah, no, Minnesota. It's really the Eastern Conference that I'm.
But yeah, that gives me a lot to consider when we get done recording this.
Mm,
Gonna have some plans to make
yeah,
potentially.
now you
Hopefully,
do.
fingers crossed.
Now you
Cause
do.
I'll give the quick spiel about my life that no one cares about. We had already planned to be up there on July 2nd for a concert that night, but my
Hmm.
husband is also a big Jurassic Park guy.
Oh,
So
okay.
that is the day that the new Jurassic World movie comes out. So we bought tickets at a theater in Minnesota on the way to Minneapolis
Oh
to
wow,
stop and see the
y'all are
movie.
locked in.
We are locked in.
That's
But
incredible planning.
yeah, so if we have to add like a quick overnight the day before, I
Everyone
wouldn't be
wins.
mad. I wouldn't be mad.
Yeah.
I would take it. But yeah, I definitely to get back to basketball, to wrap it up on basketball. At least today, maybe our commenters won't be telling me how wrong I am about basic facts, and it'll just be no one cares. I'll take that.
Just don't let Vegas win, because then no, just don't let Vegas win. You'll get put in the pack, but you know it'll be fine.
Hey,
It'll be fine.
I'm number one hedger.
Mm.
But no, I'm super excited. I think that this Atlanta Liberty matchup is going to be thrilling.
Yes.
To have Jonquel back, to have her
Major.
ready to get out there against one of the only other teams in the league that has the kind of interior presence that the Liberty have with Bree Jones and BG in Atlanta. I mentioned this yesterday with Cindy, and I mentioned this before that like I feel like I talk about the Dream all the time because I was so unsure what to expect from them, and I've been so impressed with what we've seen. Yep. And then I do go elsewhere and see like the quote unquote like bigger media outlets, the bigger conversations, and it always surprises me that Atlanta is not really being discussed that much. Like I feel like that's such a obvious conversation to be have, and also. Sorry, there's only 13 teams in the league. Like, how do you not talk about anyone? Yeah. To be super honest. But I think that this is a massive game to judge kind of where they're at so far against top competition. They're fun to watch, especially with Jordan Canada getting healthy again. Yeah. Some of the plays she's had have been so exciting. So tremendous. Obviously, the defense of New York is stifling. And so I think we're really going to see Atlanta have to get into their bag and have to play to their players' strengths. Like, I don't think that this is a game that you win because BG and Bree Jones are hitting 3 threes apiece. This is a game that you win because of great ball movement, because of just having consistent performance from all of your players, but whoever has an advantage on any given possession takes advantage of it, and that's something we have seen. So it's a game that I don't really feel super like confident calling. Like I think that this is a in theory fairly even playing field. I think that this could be a game that a team runs away with, because that's just the way that these matchups go, especially with, again, the depth of New York. But who knows how healthy Jonquel is. You can get people in foul trouble on both sides, and that changes things. So this is, far and away number one on my slate for tonight. Like, locked in, main screen.
For sure.
I'm so excited. And again, this opportunity to get a lot of looks at different teams early in the season is just so exciting. It's a great way to, I think, engage people and get that understanding. And so you couldn't have had a much better lineup here for a final night where every game isn't like quote unquote championship consequences, because that gets overwhelming, but there are several that have really strong implications. And so that's very fun. It's sort of that preview of like the end of the regular season where things really matter for seeding. This is big, and I'm really excited to see what we get out of it.
Yeah, no, I'm stoked for this one. Like, this is absolutely the main screen game, and I think to your point of like people not I don't know if people know exactly where to rate Atlanta yet, because like the record is the record, but like it's kind of hard because we see New York and Minnesota have like this top record and clearly kind of be like the top tier, but we have Atlanta, you have a Phoenix that are like right below them that are like have been a bit more consistent than like a Seattle or a Vegas, who like we've also like have like those like superstar quality players that can get you deep into the playoffs. But these two teams in Atlanta and Phoenix, and to focus on Atlanta here, like this is the game, I feel like, where it's like, prove it.
Yep.
You know, like you guys have looked great. Alicia Gray has looked like in many other years would be like a legitimate MVP candidate. And like this is the game where it's like, okay, we can start having that conversation. Again, Fee's just playing otherworldly. I don't know if anyone's gonna catch her, frankly, but that is the level that Gray has been playing at.
But she has to be in the conversation. Like,
absolutely.
A quarter of the way through the season is too early to say that anything is done. And so like you gotta at least give her the respect of mentioning her in those conversations, mentioning the dream in those conversations of competing for, you know, down the road, home court advantage in the playoffs. And so this would be the way to break onto the radar of the people who, for whatever reason, haven't been paying attention. This is the way to ensure that no one can really be overlooking them anymore if they can get this done tonight. Yeah, no, it's like the ultimate prove-it game, because like not only if you let's just say like, okay, so if you win this game, not only do I feel like you announce yourself as like a legitimate threat to these top two teams, you know, presumably I feel like if they win this game, Gray is going to have to keep doing what she's been doing, which is like what she's been doing. So like, you know, like it's like a very real possibility. So that is an announcement in its own right from an individual level from her. And then also like this is like unmissable. Like if you win this game, like you are knocking New York out of the Commissioner's Cup. Like this is going to be everywhere. You are going like in terms of like the like being on social media and like what the WNBA is posting and things of that nature. Like this will be an unavoidable conversation that Atlanta has just beat the New York Liberty if they are able to beat the New York Liberty. So no matter like what the dialogue has been so far or anything, and whether you've been talking about them enough or too little or whatever, and if you've been focused on what Gray has been doing, like this is the game to go out and prove it. And if they lose, it doesn't mean that they can't go and be a threat later on down the road or anything. Like not one game doesn't determine the outcome of your entire season, especially not on June 17th, you know, but like this is the game to me where we're going to learn a lot about Atlanta and get like a real kind of measuring. Like I mean, like New York is the measuring stick right now of the entire WNBA. So if you're able to go and beat a team, especially now that they have Jonquel back, right? Because like that's kind of like the asterisk on that Fever game is like obviously you don't have Jonquel in that. If you're able to go and beat them, and Jonquel doesn't, like, she's not on a minutes restriction, so the hope is that she is like seemingly good to go and ready to roll. So there won't be like any additional asterisk that you put on where it's like, oh, Jonquel obviously looks like unhealthy or things like that. That wasn't the vibe I was kind of getting. Like it seems like she's kind of full go. This is the game for Atlanta, where it's like if you go and win this game, if you go and make it to the Commissioner's Cup, and then you're, you know, if you play a Minnesota in that, if you go and potentially win the Commissioner's Cup, you want to talk about an absolute arrival, as like as big of an arrival you can get in terms of like where you are in the season so far. Like when it comes to a pre-All-Star break announcement of like, yeah, we are legit, it doesn't get bigger than this. If you go and beat New York to get into the Commissioner's Cup and then beat a team like Minnesota once you get to that Commissioner's Cup, that would be massive for this Atlanta Dream Team. And I think in a way, like, I don't want to say necessary, but like this is a team that, like, again, everyone, it's clear who the two top teams are right now. And I feel like until there is, like, obviously we're not in the locker rooms or anything like that. And this is very much like an outside looking in, but like until these teams get knocked off by a team, it's hard to imagine a team being a threat to these two top teams. So like now that Indiana has officially like knocked off New York, even with the asterisk, it's like, okay, like we can see how this can happen. And even after the first game where it was so close with New York, it's like, okay, I can see how this can happen, right? It's hard to imagine in a playoff scenario a team beating New York or Minnesota before the finals, where they, you know, as they would eventually like match up against each other. Like you kind of have to do it now. And to gain that confidence, I feel like, in order to do it in the playoffs. Because if you go and you lose every game to these teams and then you match up in the playoffs, that's a genuine mental aspect of this. So like these games matter
so much. And I'm so intrigued to see, again, a team like Atlanta, who we had talked about extensively in the preseason. We had our doubts of just like what we were going to see and like what it looked like. And obviously there was always a possibility that it could work, but just the way it was described and with the lineup, like it wasn't the equation just from like preseason comments weren't exactly like
we were missing a lot of values.
Yeah. So like now that we're seeing it in action, it's like, oh, hold on. You know, like let's like this is really starting to add up, but it has to add up against the best teams in the league as well. And that's what I'm super excited to see if Atlanta can again just kind of make that statement. And of course, again, I want to emphasize like just if they lose this game, it doesn't mean that they can't go and be a threat down the road. But to me, this game feels massive in terms of announcing to the league that yes, Atlanta is indeed a contender long term in this WNBA season.
Absolutely, especially to be able to do it at Barclays would be massive. Would really be something. So it'll be very interesting. Obviously other games that are of interest for tonight, those are the big ones, but I mean the Mystics and Sky are going to be certainly something to watch with the way that the Sky kind of pulled some things together, the way the Mystics have been up and down a little bit. Then Golden State at Dallas, with Dallas getting some players back, losing
Gino
some
in the
others.
building. I'm telling you, we're getting the Gino Kitchen Nightmares episode where he goes in and fixes the Dallas Wings.
Okay, all right. Well, you heard that here first.
That's my hot take.
And I mean, Golden State has really been
so fun,
firing. They've been super fun. So some other games that I think are maybe not going to be like my primary focus that night, but ones that I'll be excited to come back and watch afterwards, perhaps. And certainly a lot to build on going forward, but so much to focus on as far as the Commissioner's Cup implications for tonight. So just exciting to have that getting settled and be able to sort of move forward with that and then going to be just a couple weeks away from that actual Cup game. So time just keeps on moving forward, I suppose.
It does.
All right, Tyler. Well, as far as time goes, we've spent a good amount of time on this today. Thank you so much, as always, for joining me, for getting into it. I'm super excited for tonight. Super excited to see which of our very genuine 100% straightforward predictions may take place. But beyond that, you can find Tyler DeLuca on social media at Tyler DeLuca, easy as that. Yeah. I'm Steyer Johnson at JSteyz, JSTEYZ. As always, follow the Her Hoop Stats Network. Follow our podcast. This is obviously the Her Hoop Stats podcast. We'll be back daily this week on YouTube, wherever you find your podcast as well. And then we've got all of our daily newsletter, our various other work coming out to you. You can subscribe to those. Follow us on socials, and we will talk to y'all later. Thank you.